Hey everyone, welcome to the PFF Betting Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Valenzuela. Joined with me, we have the best duo to just ever walk the earth. We've got Eric Eager here with us and Ben Brown, the two of them. It's going to be truly electric. You don't want to miss it. We are going to break down our favorite USFL props for this weekend and giving our final best bets for the NFL draft. So let's get into it. Eric, you have a story. I just heard you had a story just to even start us off. Maybe?
I did. Yeah. So, look, I'm going to plug a few people's work here because I think that I'm just carrying the ball. I'm the running back here that doesn't matter in this situation. But our very own Brad Spielberger has been working tirelessly on, sort of building, contract information, stuff for agents, stuff for teams, stuff for players. And he's been giving us, a little bit of information about the draft. And I got to say, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. You sort of gave me context about it. I'm not going to give this away, because he's our source, I guess. And I was like, okay, he's like, the number won't move. The number won't move. I wake up today, the number moved a little bit, which means Brad bet it, I think, or somebody bet it.
Has to be.
So it's like 7:30 Eastern. I'm like, okay.
Panicked. You woke up in a cold sweat, probably.
And Ben, so for context, I live in Ohio. Ben lives in Iowa. In Iowa, you can bet legally on most things, but not draft props or college football props, apparently. So, where I live in Lebanon, Ohio is probably an hour away from Lawrenceburg, Indiana, where there's a sportsbook and there's you can bet legally online. So I get into my car. I take a few meetings in my car on the way there. I stop off. I bet all the way to the limit on my DraftKings account, which is not even that high. Like a couple $100 limit is. I go into the casino. I take about as much out of my ATM as they'll allow me to. And then I go to like 4 or 5 different kiosks. Bang, bang, bang. Got these tickets now, kicking it old school. I even took a picture. I was actually going to put it on Instagram of how it was extremely foggy and dingy. And I parked in the top of the parking lot of this sportsbook. And so it was truly the most degenerate thing I've ever done. But I went ahead and did it. And then I had to have my meeting. So I run R&D and Ben's in my group. And I took our group meeting outside of a coffee shop. What was the coffee shop's name? It was something crazy.
It was.
It was like Sleepy House Coffee Shop or something. I actually am going to look this up because it was Funny Farm Coffee Company was where I was.
Sleepy House wasn't even close.
Where I was, and the internet was okay, and I was trying to do some other stuff for R&D. So I literally had to take the Slack call on my phone because I was taking up too much internet on my computer. So it was a hell of a day. Came back, took a haircut. Been going to meetings since then. So. That's dedication. I think
that is dedication.
That is dedication.
If you're trying to actually make money betting sports and betting the draft and stuff, oftentimes that's the dedication you have to do. Ben moved all the way to Iowa.
For the sole reason, right?
The whole reason, not his family.
And then I got lied to. I didn't realize that they didn't offer not only college football player props, but I also don't get a lot of draft props. So I've been scrambling, trying to find various outs throughout this whole process. And which probably brings us maybe a little bit to, another topic that Eric and I have been talking about a lot. And it's this idea of, offshore versus legalized sportsbook. Obviously we get involved with both of them, but I did think Eric had some interesting insight, at least into some of the offshore, I would say the PPH play per head shops more so than, some of the other shady sites that you deal with on, offshore. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that in the NFL draft.
Yeah, give it to us, Eric.
Give them the goods. Give them the goods.
Well, so right now it does appear like DraftKings is posting lines first, right? So DraftKings has this, just a little inside baseball. DraftKings does not have the reputation for being the sharpest sports book out there, right? I think that goes to, if you're looking at legal books in the States, you're looking at You're looking at Circa, which is out of Iowa, Colorado, and Nevada. And then, you have Pinnacle, you have BetCris, like those are offshores. And, most everybody else is just copying lines from everybody else. And so, but for draft props, you have had like DraftKings post them first. Right. And then you end up getting like these offshores, which aren't particularly sharp. All they're doing is sort of like copying the orders and then adding another like 10 cents of VIG to both sides. And so oftentimes Ben and I, when we look at our offshore accounts, we'll say, oh, look, 365 or whatever has, these props. And Ben's like, yeah, they're just like shittier prices, right? So like, let's ignore them. The crazy thing becomes, though, they're also slower. So like
way slower,
so like as Kyle Hamilton goes from pick 6.5 to 8.5 to 9.5 to 10.5, or Sauce Gardner, the big one I have with Sauce Gardner, like I had not made a Sauce Gardner bet the entire draft season. Our book had him at 7.5. I think under was something like, it eventually ended up being like minus 190, 200 or so, which when it was 7.5 painted across the whole marketplace, that was a bad price. But now that he's 5.5, you look at Bet Online, under is like minus 165, then 7.5 under being minus 200 is actually like a pretty good price. And so it's not necessarily like the hold is still not good in a lot of these places, but their slowness makes them a good price relative to the current truth that's reflected in the rest of the marketplace. So I think that that's where, I know that we wanted to sort of write some of these books off, but, ultimately like they end up having some value later on. Like last year for the third overall pick market, like when Trey Lance was starting to emerge as the favorite, like they hung up a price, like an offshore book that we have hung up a price that was like plus 110. And the rest of the marketplace had gone down from plus 300 to plus 150. So compared to plus 150 at the time that they changed their price, that's a shitty price. But once the entire marketplace moved to him as like a minus 400 favorite, plus 110 is a great value. And so you can pop that, even though it's a crappy book with high hold. At that time, it's actually not so bad. And again, this is the one place where, almost the one place, like if you're betting things like football or, any other like major market, you probably don't even see this in sports like the WNBA anymore either, where they used to be soft, but they've become a lot sharper. Like that's like the only place where you get these humongous price discrepancies where going book to book and just picking off numbers is really a good play for you.
Right.
So are you guys then like doing that? Are you guys watching them a little bit more now? Because this is like the first time I've heard you guys like kind of talk about that recently. Or what are you guys doing? Are you guys when you see something that you like, are you just betting it right away, knowing that it's probably going to change and they're just a little bit slower?
Well, and I think that this is a pretty good a piece of advice for like any sport. Like if you are even NFL, now the edges are going to be so much smaller, but like I always show, like I show you guys Pinnacle and Chris's line in the Slack channel. Like if you're looking at the sharp books and the sharp books make a move. So let's say in a game, for example, it goes from like Tampa Bay -3 to Tampa Bay -3.5. And then you go and you look and some of these offshore or some of these square books still have Tampa Bay 3. Like that's kind of where you would go in and, depending upon what the if it's 3 minus 110 versus 3.5 minus 110, you would go ahead and bet 3. In draft markets that, we're looking at, DraftKings is usually the first place where they come out. They might not be sharp, but that's the first place where they come out and the first place where they change. So if they change, let's say again, Sauce Gardner from 7.5 to 5.5, like then what we'll do is go look at all these other books and see if the other books are slow to go and they're still hanging out a 7.5, because in theory that's where sort of the value ends up being.
The idea is kind of like timeless, right? But it's obviously identifying who are the originators of the market and then who are actually going to be the ones lagging behind. And it does seem like especially for draft props, that the paperhead shops have been really slow, I would say, over the past couple of years. I do think it's probably a pretty easy spot to exploit. So,
Eric, are you going to post those photos on Instagram then? I kind of need the photo. Guys, if you don't follow Eric Eager on Instagram, it is a great follow. It's a great follow.
I feel like it's like a combination of like wholesome stuff and just like, wow, this guy is a degenerate.
It is, yeah, because you
cool
post your
kind of
kids,
thing.
which is incredible. Like Family Guy, he's like adorable
Family
kids,
Guy.
and then he's like, yeah, well, he's got all his screens watching USFL, and you're like, oh, there's Eric, like there he is.
There's Eric, the other side of Eric, right?
The other side of Eric.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of like give a class another example is like Hamilton. Like we got Hamilton over 6.5 at like plus 111 when the whole market was on him at 8.5.
Right.
And again, like those, you're just never going to get that kind of value. And, and you max those bets out or whatever. And again, like I think you have way more, and we'll get to the USFL on this as well. Like I think people are like, oh, if you're betting the draft, you must be like, you gotta seek help. And I'm like, no, if you're putting limit size bets into NFL markets, you need to seek help because you're swimming with some sharks
on a Sunday morning,
and you're going to lose money. So if you really want to make money sports betting, you have to, the draft is a great place to flex your muscles and get stronger. The USFL, like strangely, is a way to try to understand, and like flex your muscles and understand how to build a power ranking, how to make a number between the game, and when your number differs from the price that's offered by the sportsbook, you bet your beliefs or you reevaluate your beliefs. I think that's all that betting really is. It's we're trying to, and there's educational research about this. When I was a professor, like it was big time. Like if you give your students skin in the game type of exercises, they learn faster. And like, I just looked at, both of you, obviously, like, and myself, it's like, we've all gotten a lot smarter about the NFL game by putting our own skin in the game because like the feedback loop is so much more, the feedback loop is so much more real. Like you can say whatever you want about, like I can say whatever I want about the LA Dodgers, but like, if I don't have skin in the game, I don't even know what the score of their game was last night, let alone like what actually happened. So, I think it's and this time of year, a new football league, but also the draft is a really good time for you to flex your muscles so that when you go into the ring, in the fall with sides and totals in NFL and college, you're that much smarter.
What are your favorite, just for people that maybe aren't in offshore stuff? What are you guys' favorites? What are you guys' ones that you trust the most for if anyone wants to take your advice and start looking?
At least like as far as bets you're talking about for that draft, especially. I'll let Eric go first. I think he's got some locks. I got a couple, but
you can't give this great advice and then not say which ones are maybe the ones that you should be looking at.
So BetOnline has a prop right now. John Mechie, the wide receiver from Alabama, under 59.5. I took under that on BetOnline. I have a few friends in the NFL who have draft picks like right around that area who have specifically gone out of their way to tell me that John Mechie is good. So like, I'd be surprised if he went into 60 or later. That's one that I'm a big fan of. This price continues to climb. So, I'd probably take it up until minus 200, but under 7.5 offensive linemen. I've been doing a lot of mock drafts and, last year the number was 6.5. And we got to 5 offensive linemen, usually wide. And you're seeing the wide receiver market go up, right? So 5.5 has become more and more expensive. The quarterback market, it started at 3.5, it got to 2.5, but now we're starting to see more 3.5. So there's a chance of 3 quarterbacks. But at the same time, the total offensive players market at 16.5, the under is the favorite there. So the only thing congruent with that is, and then there's also the sort of long tail stuff. If somebody takes a tight end randomly, somebody takes a running back, which is an underdog, but becoming increasingly less so at plus 145, Breece Hall, a possibility to Buffalo. The one that gets squeezed is offensive linemen. And I think the offensive lineman learning curve, our colleague Timo Riske wrote about it, where it takes linemen longer to develop. We have more teams that are more all in on the season than you've ever seen it. So a team taking a developmental lineman and not wanting him to play right away in the late 20s, that I think is decreased. So under 7.5 linemen, offensive linemen is a big one. And then the last one, and this is again one where when me and Ben made the market mock, it just kept popping up. But over 6.5 Big Ten players taken in the first round. I just see at the end of the first round, you're seeing Jaquan Brisker, you're seeing Daxton Hill, you're seeing Arnold Ebikite, you're seeing Jahan Dotson. Like there's like a collection of Big Ten players that I think could go in round one that they don't all have to go in round one. Like you're already to 5 players in the Big Ten that are kind of locks, and then you have like 4 to 5 players that are all going to stack in picks 26 through 32. I think you easily get over 6.5 Big Ten players.
Yeah, I do think that's actually a pretty good hedge, with the offensive lineman under 7.5 as well, because I do think like Tyler Linderbaum's kind of like the key, I would say, in a lot of ways to 7.5 offensive linemen actually going over. How does the league actually value some of those interior offensive linemen and those sorts of things? That's an interesting question that's going to happen. But if he, obviously Big Ten player from Iowa, if he does go, I think that's obviously going to help the Big Ten number go over. You could probably still get there pretty easily if he does end up going in the first round, like Eric said, mentioned some other guys. So I kind of like that one as a hedge actually quite a bit. One that I have repeatedly said, and for some reason it has not, it just hasn't moved, but we have seen, Eric talked about it earlier, but, Derek Stinley's, an odds-on favorite basically to get drafted in the top 10. Now have seen his number basically move from like 12.5 up to 10.5 up to 9.5. Ahmad Sauce Gardner, his draft position number has moved as well, but we haven't seen, the overall cornerback market 4.5 plus 110 plus 120 price really adjust that much. I do think if some of those guys end up in the top 10, you're going to see, more selections in the back half of the first round from that particular position. So I like that one here still quite a bit. And I do think there's, a few other opportunities, I would say, in the draft market as well. So
I had 2 questions that were sent over Twitter DMs for you guys. I'm sorry, I forget the names of whoever sent them. So just know that you're being heard though. So the first one was, do you guys have any player specific props that you are betting on for the NFL draft? Like Kenny Pickett to go to the Panthers, anything like that you guys are seeing that you guys think still has some value out there?
I have some Pittsburgh to draft Malik Willis. I think that's actually moved, but I have been pretty steadfast in my belief that my reasoning for this is very provincial. In 2017, the Kansas City Chiefs, my favorite team, I was on the radio saying Patrick Mahomes. And part of the reason I was because I thought Patrick Mahomes was the 27th best player in the draft, and he was going to be a huge value there. And I remember I was on my friend Seren Petro's show, and he's like, well, what if they have to trade to 10? And I'm like, no, they don't have to trade to 10. And then we get to draft time, and I remember this is the first ever draft prop I've ever bet, and it was with Ben. And we bet Patrick Mahomes under 16.5 draft position. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was like my first 2 months of knowing George. Like we were preparing, like this was the first year we worked together. And I was as insufferable as I've ever been, which is a feat. But when I saw the Buffalo Bills icon switch to the Kansas City Chiefs icon, pick 10 of the 2017 draft, I did circles around my house. They traded up. They got my guy. They got Patrick Mahomes. And again, like I'm not trying to compare Malik Willis to Patrick Mahomes, but I think like the trajectory is similar, right? He's a guy that like steadily improved, steadily got on our radar. We thought of him as kind of a second round pick, but then once everybody got a hold of his athleticism, his upside, he was linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like, what if Pittsburgh has to get to 10, right? Mm-hmm. What if Pittsburgh has to get to 8? What if they have to get to 6 with Carolina? I think they're going to do what's necessary to trade up and go ahead and get Malik Willis. So, that's the one where that's really my only like, hey, this player and this pick makes sense. When you look at Willis, Steelers are 7-2 to take him. Panthers are still the favorite, plus 250. But I would still take 3.5 to 1 Pittsburgh to take Malik Willis.
There you have it, Ben. Do you got any?
So I've been kind of interested.
Specific?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested in like the team draft specials. I know it's not player specific, but it is team specific ones that they have on FanDuel. So one that definitely jumps out to me, it is correlated basically with my cornerbacks market, but I do think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to go cornerback at the end of the first round there. So plus 340 on that price. The market expectation is offensive lineman, basically plus 100 odds. So, 50-50 chance. Defensive lineman plus 250. But I do think they're going to go cornerback there at the end of the first round. I do think that's probably one of my favorite not necessarily player specific, but team specific option.
Yeah, that one's pretty dull, right? Because they've addressed offensive line and free agency, right? About as well as you can.
Right.
That actually reminds me of one more. And team draft specials. So if you look at the Atlanta Falcons, is that one still up, Ben?
I'm not seeing that one right now. I only see Arizona.
Okay.
At the beginning. So
because somebody messaged me and like they said, wide receiver was a wide receiver, corner, safety, all this. I think the Falcons take Charles Cross at 8. And if you can get the Falcons to take an offensive lineman with their first pick, I think that's a pretty good pick. And Charles Cross is now 7.5, 8. We got under 8.5. It's 7.5 now. But again, I think Ben's right. I think a lot of these, if you can get, if you're looking at one, especially a team that's picking later, and you get a team that's picking later, and there's like an overwhelming favorite. So in Ben's example, Bengals are picking 31st. Offensive linemen's even money.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's ridiculous. It's the same thing when you have these positional markets where it's not like corner where guys can go top 5 like Sauce Gardner, but it's like running back where it might be picked 40 before one's taken. At that point, it's like styles make fights, right? Like that's the Clyde Edwards-Helaire being taken over Jonathan Taylor type situation.
Right.
Last year, it was Richie Grant was the first safety when I believe who was the favorite? It was a Javon Hall. I can't remember who was the favorite, but it was like, safety wasn't even picked in round 1, and the favorite wasn't even close to being taken first. So for some of these where you have like first tight end taken, if you can find a market for that, don't take the favorite. Take somebody who's a little bit more of a long shot. They even have an Indianapolis Colts, first drafted player. They don't even pick till the second round, right? And so and the offensive lineman there is less than plus 200. That just seems ridiculous to me. That the market would seem to know with all that much certainty what they're going to take with their first pick, given everything that can transpire before it.
If you guys because you guys said Big Ten over 6.5, right? That's where you guys were headed. Do you guys like any of the other ones? Like the SEC is, plus, what am I looking at? Plus 105 to go under 10.5. Do you like any of those counters too? If you like the Big Ten to go over, to take any unders on other of the college props?
I think the Pac-12 is the one that might go under. ACC possibly as well. I think the SEC is always a good bet to go over.
Right.
They're both at 4.5.
The bet that we made today would seem to be correlated with the over on the SEC. If you want to try to reverse engineer what we bet today. With the syndicate, that the SEC is just one where you think about like Matt Corral sneaks into the first round. That's an SEC. Nakobe Dean sneaks into the first round. That's an SEC. I'm trying to think of Devontae Wyatt sneaks. Like those are all SEC. Guys like that. Jameson Williams is a lock now. When before people didn't think John Mechie could be that surprise. Like a pick. That they make and stuff like that. So the tricky one is there's no Las Vegas Raiders in the first round, so they're not going to take an Alex Leatherwood type player. Right. But at the same time, like you have that, like I think with the SEC, like 11 players is no, and you're getting a decent price. You're getting minus 130. I think in most places to go over 10.5.
Okay. Any other NFL draft props? We'll probably do another show before this, but any other ones you want to leave the people with, Ben and Eric, before we move on to the USFL?
I think we got all the value right now. Hopefully we're going to get, a few more options here. I would like to see, obviously see some more player specific draft position ones, but I think we're going to get a few more offerings here before it's all said and done. So we got to run it back maybe one more time.
One more time. So Eric, how was your first week of USFL? How did you do?
I told Ben I could have gone on vacation if the New Jersey Generals would have just finished what Donald Trump started and won that game.
Right.
The joke is, of course, Donald Trump owned the previous version of the New Jersey Generals, a team quarterback by Doug Flutie and with a running back Herschel Walker. In that game, I had Generals plus 3.5. I had under, was it 42 by the time it closed, Ben?
Yeah.
If you just would have got one stop at the end of the game, both of those would have hit. Instead, I was down pretty badly after the first game. And then Ben and I did not lose a USFL bet on Sunday, Easter Sunday. God shined down on us,
like always,
or on Easter Sunday with no losses in the USFL. We got lucky that it was the Philadelphia Stars New Orleans Breakers game that the total was 42. There was a touchdown to get it to 40, so it was 23-17. And they missed the extra point, and then there was like 3 missed field goals after that.
Oh my
gosh. And then New Orleans got the ball back, so Philadelphia chickened out and punted down 6 with 4 minutes left, thinking they could play defense. And there was a couple runs by New Orleans where the guy broke it off but tripped or something, and so they ended up kneeling the game out. So that game went under, which was nice. And Philadelphia covered the teaser that we bet with them. We didn't that was the only game we didn't bet aside. We only teased it up. So that was fun. And then the Monday night game, which was supposed to be the Sunday night game, we had the Pittsburgh Maulers +6. They were horrendous. So that was the loss. But we did have under, which was no sweat at all.
The lock.
I don't think the lock. Yeah.
So we were up 11%, I would say, Ben and I, on betting USFL week 1. So good. The answer, long-winded answer to your question is good.
I love that. I love those answers. Who's your team, Eric? I know Ben's told us
whoever covers is my team. Whoever covers is my team. I think I'm on Jeff Fisher tonight. So I'm a Jeff Fisher.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm a Jeff Fisher fan. Yeah, I'm a Jeff Fisher fan.
I think I'm only just not a fan of Pittsburgh. I think right now they're just setting the course of football back by 20 years.
They're only them.
They had the biggest lib owning drive I've ever seen. Where they went hand off, 4 tight ends, hand off to the running back 3 yards, 4 tight ends, hand off to the running back 3 yards, and then it was 3rd and medium, and they were hand off to the running back, and then punt on 4th and 2. You're already down 7-0, and I'm
this is over.
I feel so owned right now. And at the same time, the Tampa Bay Bandits, who were supposed to be the best team in the league, only scored, 17, maybe 20. I know they missed
17. It was 17.
17.
I think.
So Pittsburgh had every chance in the world to cover 6.
They couldn't even get a touchdown.
They didn't.
It was, So look, again, these new leagues give you a chance to flex your betting muscles, because you're going to be if you're on overs, you're going to go broke. You're going to be in the poorhouse. So you got to be on unders, and unders are hard to bet, but at least these leagues give you the added benefit of the unders winning. The unders win in this league.
Yeah. You don't feel bad when you bet it either. So what are you guys on this weekend? I know there's a game tonight as we're recording this, so we can either skip that one or go through it, but what are you guys on tonight, and what do you like besides all the unders? I'm assuming all the unders, because that's what Ben said last weekend, and he was right.
It worked. Yeah. It worked. We got some early unders, and they moved 2 points basically. I think it was 43.5, 42.5, both down to 40.5, 41 now. So we are on some of those unders from early in the week. It was weird, the release, right? For a long time, there's only 2 games out for the books that I was looking at basically. But yeah, I have those 2. I did have some success live betting the New Orleans Breakers last week, and I do think that BetMGM was basically the only book I could find that was offering some live odds on the USFL, but I think that's how I'm going to approach it, especially tonight with Jeff Fisher at the helm. So I don't have a ton of feel for either side of the spread, I think, happening. What do you got, Eric?
So so tonight's game, whether you're listening tonight, I like Jeff Fisher's team, the Michigan Panthers +1. Plus 120 or no, plus even money on the money line. That one might be gone, but there is actually a low total. Maulers versus Stars, which is the noon game next week or tomorrow. And I'll go under 35. I'll make this team. This is Army Navy to me. I'll make this team score some points here. The Pittsburgh Maulers on early downs had a 22.7% success rate in their first game and negative 0.6 expected points, almost 0.7. So they're horrendous. I need to see them score some points. And the funniest part was we got some unders last week with some defensive touchdowns too. There were some help. There were some helpers that but still didn't get us to the window in a week where all the opening totals went under and the closing totals were 3 and 1 to the under. So I like that one. I also like the new. So this is actually and I'm not even joking. 3:00 on Sunday. New Orleans Breakers, Tampa Bay Bandits, those are the two best teams in the league. So I'm kind of pumped about that. Kyle Sloter was a little bit injured on the Saturday game. He's always been great in preseason. And, you know, he's a pretty good quarterback. Jordan Tiamu threw a couple interceptions against Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's defense might be actually decent. It might be as good as their offense is bad. So, you know, New Orleans is 2.5-point underdogs. They're plus 125 on the money line. I would take them in that game because, you know, the other side, my former head coach with the Chiefs, Todd Haley, you know, I think he's having fun out there, and he was scheming some stuff open, but he's still kicking field goals on like 4th and goal from the 3. He's still doing a lot of like silly stuff. So bet the underdog in that game. I would not bet the under. That's the one game I would not bet the under. There are 2 decent quarterbacks in that game. So that's the one. New Orleans plus 125 is my bet for Sunday.
It's always so entertaining having both of you together because you bring out the best bets in each other, and it is so entertaining. It is so entertaining. Any other USFL, any other nuggets, like anything you want people to know, USFL, NFL draft, anything that you want the people to know before you guys sign off?
Well, I'll just say, like, I know, you know, you guys are probably going to do another show next week. I think some of the best content that we do, Ben's been doing this for 2-3 years now, is the Friday morning after the first round. I don't think there's anybody in the industry that makes more money on Friday of the draft than Ben. So, you know, like that article,
2 and 3.
That article that comes out the Friday morning that looks at what happened in the first round, you know, bet some exactas in the second. Like I remember we had running wide receiver first Indianapolis pick a couple years ago, and it was Michael Pittman and like all that kind of stuff.
We had T. Higgins too for Cincinnati 2 years ago as well.
Cincinnati.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's I just think it's great content. Obviously, we have the draft show, which is Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday afternoon. I'm on night 1 myself, Trevor Sikkema, Chris Collinsworth, and Mike Renner, with Austin Gale and Seth Galina on like the beer bar on the side. So that's just going to be an awesome experience. And then obviously, you know, like it's been such a, you know, a great treat that how much, you know, better we've gotten at betting content because of you guys and stuff. So I think it'll just be a fun week of true degenerate splendor before we have like 3 or 4 months of just USFL and CFL football.
Exactly. Yeah. Ben and I will have another show. Eric, if you want to join us, we would love to have you. But yeah, it's a big week. We're all getting ready for it. So pff.com/betting, just pff.com in general. You guys put out another mock draft too. That was awesome. So if you guys are so inclined, everyone go check everything out. But we'll be back next week with another episode of Best Bets. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening.